Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reacts, where today we got ourselves a track from acts Sunset Black and Gent titled Outlaw. And if we switch over to here, we've got ourselves the official music video on YouTube. This is not the first. I should note that this is not the first time that I've checked out music from Gent and Sunset Black. I previously reviewed their track Overthink. We're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's do it, let's go. I like the production value on the video itself, it's quite professional. Got the Outlaw title with those wistful guitars.
I never sunset in the lights. I'm a wanted outlaw. Cold such a look, 'cause I'll hit my target regardless of if I got a musket. I'm a country boy, like a city way. So give me peace and let me be a fine and dirty drink. 'Cause I'm a lonely man, but I ain't getting caught. So tell the shit if you can scare us, 'cause we got to be the boss. We can talk your shit, get up with a bad lip. 'Cause I'm a swallow, be loud, we down for the catnip. If it's beef, you better cease. 'Cause I'm sunset and I'm on the black sheep. So if it's beef, you better cease. 'Cause I'm sunset and I'm on the black sheep. Come on. Deep, 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 come on. Do, do, da, do, do, da, do, da. Do, do, da, do, do, da, do, come on. Deep, 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 deep.
I mean, it's catchy with the harmonies.
Come on. Do, do, da, do, do, da, do, da. Do, do, da, do, do, da, do, come on. Outlaw, I want it, desperado, Gent Jack in a bottle, rolling that Colorado, auto throttle on the model, I don't need that all though, on the spot, no fake bitches, Picasso. Now I'm shining, baby, cause every time I'm starting that frost, I'm Lamborghini sitting on bars, with two more in my garage, with some blue and left Ferrari, with Nintendo and Atari, couple of shots on the left, whipping up the calamari. The only way that I'm dragging is if I breathe flames, competition's anonymous, they don't need names, speak game, this thing is insane, black sheep and Gent Jack, man. I'm a wanted outlaw, cold such a look, 'cause I'll hit my target regardless of if I got a musket. I'm a country boy, like a city way, so give me peace and let me be a fine and dirty drink. 'Cause I'm a lonely man, but I ain't getting caught, so tell the shit if you can scare us, 'cause we got to be the boss. We can talk your shit, get up with a bad lip, 'cause I'm a swallow, get loud, we down for the catnip. If it's beef, you better cease, 'cause I'm sunset and I'm on the black sheep. So if it's beef, you better cease, 'cause I'm sunset and I'm on the black sheep. Come on.
And what the end? What? Oh. Oh, okay. That was interesting. That was interesting. That ending where he unsubscribed there. Was it more to sort of show why they shouldn't support them? Is it done ironically? We're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from Sunset Black and Gent titled Outlaw. In this section, we're going to provide an overall song analysis of everything from lyrics and vocals all the way through to studio production, as well as any applicable constructive critique. And then finally, my general thoughts from a listener's perspective, my final ones. But first of all, what do we think this track is about? I think with the kidnapping and the person being strapped to the chair are made to sort of like watch the performance of the people sort of spitting over the mic with a variety of different textures, tones, and timbres. with the guitars, drums, and bass intertwined with the turntablism as well. You have someone being exposed to the music, and at the end, when they're showing the sign after having a nap or having a bit of food before the show, they're left in a position where maybe they don't want to follow that anymore. And that's interesting to me, like that they got put through that and they didn't want to sort of subscribe. I'm going to be thinking about that later on, unless I'm confusing things and it was actually subscribing to it. But I think the story anyway was unique and original. I do think that it's an interesting twist on the concept of an outlaw. The outlaw is showing himself on the mic, the country boys, etc. Having Sunset Black and Gent Jack sort of like take turns on the microphone. I'm not sure which musician is which, but regardless, it's just pleasant. They've got solid vocal technique and timbre. They are comfortable in a head voice. The lady vocalist as well was a nice foil in the upper range there. And they talk about like cutting the beef or stopping the beef in that at the end part. So I kind of wonder whether maybe unsubscribing is simply stopping, hate subscribing to them or something like that, or just kind of letting them be in a certain sense. But you get the feeling that they're both simultaneously trying to assert their dominance whilst also letting you know that they're going to do what they want, and also they are unaffected by you, but they just don't want to have to deal with your whatever anymore. But they should keep an eye on them regardless. See, I think that going back to the vocal quality, the performance though, the different, like the chorus rapped vocals in there, as well as the later verse there from the other kind of like rapper, and then you have the lady vocalist going on over top with their pipes. It's quite a busy sounding track. And I don't necessarily mean that in a negative way. It's just more like there's a lot to pay attention to in the mix. I'm wondering if the guitars were double tracked or whether we had one take we copied to the other side and ended up phasing into the middle there, because the guitars kind of seemed like that was centered in the middle. I'm wondering if we didn't do different guitar takes and that it ended up sort of like happening. It's always good with distorted guitars to do different recorded takes to make the guitars wider in the mix. And I kind of wonder whether that might have given the vocals a bit more room to breathe there. Although to be fair, the vocals are spread around the stereo field, the left and right sides of the headphones and speakers. And things kind of bounce around backwards and forwards, and it's quite a smooth experience there. And it's nice to have the alt leads there of like the turntablism and everything like that come on as like a background layer on certain elements though. I mean, structurally with verses and choruses there, it makes good use of the 3 minutes 40. You have that extended intro there with those very kind of moody, mysterious sounding guitar parts there on the steel strings, kind of eliciting a feel of being a cowboy in the desert. And they have these sort of basses or sort of like pads underneath there which elicit a sense of tension and uncertainty, especially when combined with the audiovisual experience you have with the man with like the white and black eyes, putting the person in the band room with the occasional kind of bells there, tolling for thee. And you have that kind of twisted kind of chant that occurs before the rest of the band or the group is introduced there. I just feel like, again, like it's well structured there. And I think that in isolation, the track is probably a lot shorter. Or maybe it's the whole thing, but either way, you could probably appreciate it from an isolated concept within like a 2 minute meter without the intro elements or like having the whole thing. And like going back to the vocals, like I feel like the drums are done well here. We've got an acoustic kit which adds a bit of sort of like an organic tone and flavor to the piece there. But you've got this kind of breaths on the syncopated offbeats there, which are a further percussive element there in some parts, such as the second verse, which I appreciate. Not only do the words come through clearly, for the most part, not only is there a sense of charisma to the different vocalists and how they're communicating, like they're expressing themselves well, but then you also have them sort of breathing and adding further sort of sense of connection to the rhythmic elements on the kicks, snares, hi-hats, etc. And we don't just play hi-hats and kicks and snares the entire time. We don't just sit there with an eighth note groove. We have like kicks kind of doof, 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 I like to slow down sometimes. And those kicks, they permeate within that section with do-do-do-do, that catchy little vocal melody harmony thing going on there. It's just a nice sort of contrast to the subject matter we had prior there. It's good to sort of shake things up and not be too sort of wordy all the time. It almost gets kind of scattish at that point there, which is a fun idea for a sort of a country rock hip hop track. And luckily we've got the pipes to be able to pull it off. But yeah, it's very sort of like minimalist, sort of like on the drums at the same time there. It's all about supplying either a quarter or an eighth note groove there for the vocalists sort of like bounce around upon or scat on. The bass and the low end thick and full there, and providing us a nice ground bed for the surrounding elements there. And you've got this kind of grinding, sort of distorted rhythm guitar riff. I know I mentioned not being sure if it was double tracked 4/4, but regardless, what I do appreciate is that it's relatively minimalist harmonically as well, to not sort of overcolor things, especially where the vocals are involved, especially because they are kind of resonant within the middle of the stereo field. And I think that that's a nice contrast to those single string kind of picked melodies with the kind of reverb tails that we had at the beginning. It's got a kind of dusty, crusty tone in a similar way to the drums have a bit of a spicy upper end there, so I kind of added a little bit of extra edge and resonance to that. Again, combined with the turntablism kind of chopping or cutting that you have as an occasional sort of additional rhythmic device to those vocal parts and the drums and everything like that, and you have quite a lush sounding composition that I think is true to the country sort of like rock and metal, like hip-hop stylings, the fusion of elements that it is including, and just adds further lead variety as well. But the track doesn't overstay its welcome. At the same time, you feel like you've had a lot that you're exposed to, but even though it's quite busy at some points, it never feels like it's explicitly too much to the point that it's unpleasant. And I just think part of that is simply because it's shorter with the time where it's busy, whereas at the start there's just this expanse, so you can tell that they clearly know what they're doing. Thematically, this is minor oriented, you know, but it's not the kind of sad, unhappy, miserable minor. It's more like energetic, we're cool, we're grooving, we're in charge of things kind of minor there, where it's more assertive. It's got a nice balance between the lows, mids, and highs there that doesn't make it sound too decrepit or depressing. And even though, again, you've got this kind of like very somber beginning with the actual speed of the notes there, with that tension that is palpable, the brightness in terms of some of the frequency responses of the instruments doesn't make it seem to me like the melody there, it's in the mid-range and it doesn't sort of weigh itself down too much. We don't have a whole lot of sub bass kind of dragging us down. So I think ultimately it's just the layering of instruments, the way they're positioned in the frequency spectrum, as well as the kind of catchiness and accessibility of the chord progression that makes this track work. And it's rather neutral in a way that suits a lot of the other elements quite well. Studio recording, mixing, and mastering, I think for the most part that I'm okay with. Some of the vocal takes, because it was quite busy in the middle of the stereo field, I didn't get all the words through clearly. I think, again, part of that is just simply because there's quite a lot going on. I wasn't sure if there was like a dominant lead layer in some parts. I think simply maybe that's the kind of experience they want, is to kind of flood you with this, especially if you're the person in the chair. It's not that they were recorded badly, because when I heard the vocal takes, they were dope. You know, there were no issues with EQing or anything like that. There were sort of wonderful representations and recordings of the Texas and timbres, and they clearly rap and sing. You know, like the lady had some pipes and they were melodic rapping and had a great sense of cadence and flow to their parts. It's just that there were some parts where things kind of came in and out there, and I think maybe it was because it was quite close to what was going on with those guitars or the drum parts, etc. I think, to be fair, there was also a bit of a resonance with those hi-hats there. They seemed a little bit kind of like sharp in the 1 to 4 kilohertz range. And that's, again, like, it's okay if we want to spice your tone to that. But I think when I was paying attention to the vocals, those were also kind of perking up a little bit, and I was paying attention to them too. Music surrounded you in the stereo field, you know, like things went backwards and forwards in and out. No other resonant frequencies within the frequency spectrum. And yeah, no, things weren't overproduced. Nice and loud bit of pumping, bus compression, limiting is handled, and there was dynamic range, especially when comparing the intro section instrumentally to the rest of the track. Ultimately, no, real applicable constructive critique outside of the stuff I mentioned about the EQing and all that. From a final general listener's perspective, I think it was kind of an example of how to balance the length of a track with the subject matter. I think that if you'd gone on a longer story than this, it might have almost seemed like we're repeating things we didn't need to. So I'm thankful that we structured the track in the way it did, where it was a little bit sort of like unorthodox, but at the same time intriguing because of the time we took with the beginning. I like when musicians set up a sense of atmosphere within a piece there that's kind of, it's like this tension there. You kind of feel nervous, and then things release, and even at the end, you're kind of still figuring out what occurred. I mean, I think that just at the end of the day means you're still going to be thinking about the track afterwards, and I just feel like that's just an effective audiovisual experience. But thank you very much for watching my review of this track from Max, Sunset Black, and Gent titled Outlaw. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via their various social medias and YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as you need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out.